The main aim of your whole website is to get people to get in touch with you, to pick up that phone, to send that email form, whatever it is. It's to take an action to get in touch.
Hey friends, welcome to Season 4 of the GROWTHITECT podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Sumala, and here's what I've got for you this season. I gathered hundreds of hours of coaching transcripts from calls that I've had with my clients over the past few months. And then I used my buddy, ChatGPT, to analyze those transcripts and identify the top 10 challenges that architecture firm owners are facing right now. And for each question, I found an amazing industry expert to join me so that we can provide you with actionable solutions to those challenges. So today, I brought on my friend Nikita Morel to talk through what your website should actually be doing for you. She shares common mistakes to avoid and 3 pillars that will help you generate more leads from your website today. And before we jump in, a huge thanks to our friends at the American Institute of Steel Construction for sponsoring Season 4 of the GROWTHITECT podcast. Here is a fun fact for you. Did you know all domestically produced steel beams and columns are 100% recyclable and contain, on average, 92% recycled content? You can learn more about sustainable steel at AISC.org/sustainable. That is AISC.org/sustainable. Check it out and let's go ahead and jump in. Nikita, I am so excited that you're here, and I keep on hearing this recurring issue kind of coming up in my coaching calls with architects, just kind of unsure on what their website should actually be doing for them. And I'm curious how you're seeing that show up for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that is on everyone's minds because I think I've just seen a general trend of people becoming more aware. I think a lot of architects were very dependent on kind of word of mouth, referrals. They thought, oh, we don't need a website. You know, we're already getting work in. But now they're realizing, I guess, the power of having a good website in getting the right people through the door. So, yeah, I've definitely seen and heard, and I think people are more receptive to my message that I'm putting out there as well. So, yes.
Yeah, that's why I was really excited to bring you on to tackle this question specifically, because you are an absolute wordsmith. You are the copywriting expert, guru, genius, whatever we want to call you, for architects. And now you even help them specifically, not just with their website copy, but also with their entire website. So can you give us a little bit of an introduction to you and your background and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so thank you, Tyler. That's very kind. I am Nikita Morel, so I'm a copywriter and messaging strategist for architects. I've had a very colorful background. I started in architecture kind of publishing, and then I moved into working in-house at an architecture firm just to see what it was like to work with architects. And then it was over 10 years ago now that I kind of jumped ship and started my own firm to help architects with their messaging and positioning. I think that's a big thing that we might talk about today. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about positioning too. I'm sure that'll for sure find its way in. Somehow we've known each other. Do you realize this? We've known each other for like 3 or 4 years now or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is crazy. But yes, you were very well cemented before I came to you or we met each other or something like that. I will say before we jump in, literally every person that I've ever met that has worked with Nikita has had nothing but glowing and amazing things to say about you. It's true. I'm just saying people love working with you, and they have really seen positive results from it. So I'm thrilled to call you a friend, and I'm really excited that you decided to join the podcast.
Of course.
Cool. So here's what, to dive a little bit deeper into the things that I keep on hearing around the websites, right? They're coming to me, and they're having challenges with what their website should be doing. How should it actually, what purpose should it be serving for them, right? Like, where does it fall in the process? Is it something that, every client that comes to them is at one point or another, they're going to check in on it? Or is it how they should actually be getting clients? Or are there other, small changes that they can be making to be seeing the results that they want? But I'm curious how that aligns with what you've been kind of seeing and experiencing and working on your side too.
Sure. So I think things have definitely changed. If you think about if you're looking for a restaurant, the first thing you do, right, is Google it. And I think that's the thing. It is often nowadays the first touch point that you might even have with a firm. So even if a friend has mentioned your name in a conversation, people are going to go and Google it. And I think having that first impression, you need to control it in some way. And that is in your control. It's a lot of your website is just perception. People land on your website and they've got questions just swirling through their head. What type of work have these guys done? Can I trust them? Are they expensive? Have they done projects like the one I want to do? So it's up to you to really answer those questions, those real initial questions with your website. And for me personally, as a copywriter, I always say with your website words. In terms of what your website should be doing, if we zoom right out, right? We zoom right out, forget about your actual website for a second. I personally think the main aim of your whole website is to get people to get in touch with you, to pick up that phone, to send that email form, whatever it is. It's to take an action to get in touch. And so that's kind of how I see it, is it is a tool. It's that step before they reach out and they pick up the phone. So your website has to be building that trust, building that credibility, and also position you as a likable person. I always say no one likes to work with a jerk, is my little catchphrase, which I think last year at the AIA conference, I opened my whole presentation with that. But it's true. You want to come across as likable. So I don't know if that answers your question, Tyler, but yeah.
Yes, it does. And that is actually music to my ears because, yes, that is what a website should be doing. It should be basically pushing people to take whatever the next step is. That's what it needs to be doing. And I think that's what often gets forgotten. You don't actually go through the process of thinking about what you want your website to do for you when you go to build it or when you go to design it. Because what you're usually thinking, top of mind, right, is how can I present my work in the best way, right? So you end up with a website that shows your work, shows you your beautiful work, but doesn't actually make it clear and obvious what that next step is that someone is supposed to take with you, or who in the world it is that you serve or what you do for them or any of that, right? You kind of just rely on the pictures to serve for themselves. And I know that you've said it. I know that I've said it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You cannot let your work speak for itself, at least among your clients. You can do it with other architects, but you can't do it with other clients because they don't speak architect. Exactly. They don't know what it means.
Yeah. And don't forget, it depends, I guess, on the type of client, but a lot of them aren't just looking at your website in isolation. They might have 10 tabs open. So if yours is just got a little bit more jargon, or it's just confusing, or it's just frustrating them, it takes, I think Microsoft did a study and it's 8 seconds that people have to decide whether you're right for them. So if it's taking too long, they're just going to close out, right? They've got no kind of loyalty to you at that point. So you need to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can do an 8-second test right now. Go to your website and try to see how much information you can consume in 8 seconds and whether that information that you consume in 8 seconds actually tells your ideal client what you do for them.
Exactly.
If you fail that test, then you might want to make some adjustments, which we'll get into. But I'm curious, we're kind of on this track now, but what are the common mistakes that you are seeing architects make when they try to reach this conclusion on what their website should be doing for them, or they try to kind of fix it on their own?
Yeah, well, a huge one, this is almost a bit of a technical one, but this is one I've actually been seeing a lot lately, is a lot of studios call themselves a very kind of generic name, whatever it is, like XYZ. But then what happens is that on their URL, they've got no mention of the word architecture, then they've got a logo, then they've got their name. There's in that above fold section, which is a section you have before you start scrolling, there is literally no mention of architecture or design or what they do. And they've got this beautiful image, right? But it could be a travel company. It could be a graphic design company. You have no idea. So I think the first, mistake is having no mention of architecture. So when someone lands on your website, hit them with architecture and design in whatever location you're in, if that's something that you want to focus on, or whatever it is, just have that word just so that people, again, in those 8 seconds are okay, I'm in the right place. And then they can go on. I guess another mistake is, personally, again, from the lens of a copywriter, I feel is that, architecture websites, a lot of them just lack, they look the same, but they also sound the same. They lack a voice. And that's something I'm really big on. If you go visit, my website, for example, a lot of people, the feedback I get is that people can almost hear me talking to them and, when they read the website. And so I guess it's just finding that firm's voice and applying it on your website throughout, right from your homepage to your contact page. Every word on your website matters. Even how you label your navigation bar. It's all telling and it's all part of a bigger story.
Yeah, I was just having a similar conversation on the sales side inside of my inside of the studio today, like inside of the membership. And I was talking to members about how the decision that your clients are making when they're choosing an architect is not a logical decision. They're making an emotional decision. And so when you're speaking with them, you want to be speaking to them on an emotional level, because those are ultimately the same kind of nerve endings that are going to be firing when they're making the decision. And so you want to be relatable on that level. And the copy is the same way. Like the personality, the voice, like have something different, right? That can capture someone's attention, not just with the design, right? You usually kind of we're used to relying on design, right, to do that. But you can do it, and you should do it with words. You're reminding me of when you were talking about firms that don't actually say the word architect anywhere,
yes.
on their website,
Gosh.
and you don't know what it is. It reminds me of, back when I was marketing full time, I had this concept that I called like the lowest common denominator, right? Where you have to market and you have to write to the lowest common denominator in your market and assume that someone comes in knowing absolutely nothing when they land on that site, right? And you have to speak to them like they are that third grader or that fifth grader in a friendly way and make it just stupidly obvious what it is that you do for them. Because if you don't, you're just going to leave people by. You're making them do too much mental work, right?
Yeah.
To actually figure out what it is. And by that time, they're just going to move on to the next website.
Well, that's it. And I think you make such a good point. Like, I think it is like in the copywriter world, we call it awareness level. So I think if you have a residential firm and you've got homeowners, they've never worked with an architect before, they've got a low awareness level. So you need to be educating them. It's like a different kind of tone that you take on, and voice and tone, they are two different things. We won't go into that. It's like a whole English lesson. But, in a nutshell, your voice, we all wake up every day. We've got the same voice. You've got Tyler's voice. But what changes throughout the day is your tone. Whether you're talking to your kids or to your boss or to, whoever, your clients, you've got a different tone. And so parts of your website, it should all have the same voice, but the tone should change depending on whether you're talking about on the about page versus your home page. Tone plays a huge role. But yeah, versus a property developer who has worked with hundreds of architects before, then maybe you can afford to use a little bit of jargon, because at that point, it's more about selling why they should choose you. It's not so much the education piece of why you should choose an architect. It's why they should choose your firm. So yeah, there's like lots of, I guess, variables at play.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me a lot of friction. I feel like I have this conversation all the time, but every bit of information that you don't include is friction that you're adding into it. And friction is a tool, right? You can use that. So that's why you see I'm sure that you get this all the time, right? Like you look at BIG's website, or you look at Diller Scofidio's website, or you look at really any famous architect's website, right? And they're like, doesn't say anything, right? It just shows their work. And it's like, well, yeah, they're an internationally recognized brand. They can have a ton of friction in the way of people taking that next step with them, because they have a ton of attention coming that way. And they can continue to add more and more friction, because that means that the leads that are coming are going to be higher and higher quality.
Yeah, exactly. And they want different things from their website. Maybe they're pitching to do kind of philanthropic, donate money to events like that, or, speakers. Like, they want different things. Maybe they don't need clients, or they don't want clients through their website. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You're right.
So let's say a client comes to you, right? An architect comes to you with this question, right? What should my website actually be doing for me? How would you begin to address that with them step by step?
I think it's almost like that 3 kind of know, like, and trust. So I think it's like, first of all, they need to know who you are, what you're offering, what value you add to their life. Remember, it's like a lot of architecture websites, that's another mistake. It's very me-centric. So it needs to be flipped around. So instead of saying, we're so amazing, it's your project is going to be so amazing when you work with us. It's that flip. So yeah, I think it's that know, and then it's that like, which we were talking about, be human. I always tell my clients, in your project descriptions, talk about your challenges, say these are the challenges we came across. Here are some mistakes, or maybe not mistakes, but just challenges, things that come up, material delays, whatever. And then talk about how you overcame them, show how you solve problems rather than just say, hey, we're good at solving problems. So it's that like, and then, trust. And that trust comes through social proof. So testimonials, it comes through having one of those little trusted by, and then like some of your clients, case studies. So I think it's those three things is what your website has to do, so that, as we were saying before, people take action and people just pick up and give you a call, send an email form. And not just people, but the right types of people. So you want to be filtering out those not so great clients as well. And you can do that. I find like a really good tool to filter out those people that you don't want to work with is on your about page, adding some of your values or a manifesto, or just talking about what you believe in, because quite quickly, if someone's just there to just get a bargain or, pick your brain, all of a sudden they're like, oh no, then we're not a good fit, and they'll just self-filter themselves out.
All right, GROWTHITECTs, check this out. In Boulder and Atlanta, old buildings came down, but their steel beams did not go to waste. They went straight into new projects, and that is the power of U.S.-made structural steel. So here is how it works. Instead of relying on virgin iron and blast furnaces, we actually use modern technology to melt recycled scrap in electric arc furnaces, and that produces 6 million tons of the most sustainable steel in the world every single year. And the carbon footprint keeps shrinking. It's already down 12% in the last 3 years, and as our power grid moves towards renewables, it'll keep falling. Steel is strong, it lasts for decades, and it can be reused over and over without losing quality. It is a natural fit for adaptive reuse and for sustainable design. And if you want to put it to work, then download the free Sustainability Toolkit from our sponsor at AISC.org/buildgreen. That is AISC.org/buildgreen. One word there at the end. Go and check it out, and we'll get back to the show.
So know, like, trust. All of these three pillars need to be in place in order to have a website that is actually encouraging you, the right client, to take the next step with you, which, as we said, is something. It's giving you a phone call. It's filling out the form. It's sending you an email. It's one of those things. On the knowing side, is there a quick kind of test that architects could do today to kind of look at their website and be like, am I hitting this no pillar right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, just literally go through the W's, just like say, it's like almost a bit of a mini audit. Just say, am I telling my ideal client what I do, the services? And it doesn't have to be like in great detail, but just what we offer. Is it saying who we are, as a team? Is it saying kind of like your origin story, where you've come from, and then, why we're doing this? Again, this is going to be different for every firm. But then I think the biggest thing is just like, for me, the way I approach my projects with a client is I look at their architect's factor, which is that one thing that they stand for, right? And it doesn't have to be a typology. It can be, for example, I had a client that they just want to be known for radical transparency, right? So that's their thing. Another client, it's been as simple as the word color. Another one was human psychology, and they wanted to weave that into architecture. So there's like a lot of different things, but it's just one thing, and you need to communicate that kind of common thread throughout your website. So that's where I would start, and just say, do I have a thing that I am standing for that people can associate in their mind with my firm? And that's the whole reason you have an architect's factor. That X factor is like, someone says your name, they're like, oh yeah, they're that firm that are really good at fill in the blank kind of thing.
That reminds me of, I don't remember if it was you that had recommended this book to me or if it was someone else. Play Bigger. Do you know that book?
No.
Okay, so then it wasn't you. But Play Bigger is all about, everyone, if you're listening, you should go check it out. Play Bigger. It's kind of about category authoring, right? It's defining your own category. And that's essentially what you're saying. Like, is there something outside of architecture firm, outside of residential architecture firm, outside of whatever it is that you do, that's a theme that people can immediately apply to you when they hear your name, right? And that's what you're saying. On the like side, I enjoyed what you were saying, because I say the same things a lot when it comes to like posting on LinkedIn and things like that, right? Like, don't talk about the dry things of the project, right? Everyone gives such a dry project description of something when they're sharing the project, but actually tell the story behind it. Talk about the challenges that the client had when they came to you, what you did like to overcome them, and then the end result that the client experienced at the end, right? And then, hey, if there's another client that might want to work with you, or if this is an outcome that you're looking for, send me a message. Right?
Exactly.
Reach out. Like do something. But for the love of architecture and for the love of your business, please do not do this really thick paragraph about the type of brick that you used, right? And all these things. I mean, listen, I would love to read that in architecture school. I don't want to read that if I'm trying to figure out what architect I'm going to be hiring.
And people don't. It's like they're scrolling.
They don't. Yeah, you're right.
And that's the other thing with websites. Like, it really pains me to say this as a copywriter. And I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, look, you don't need a lot of words. You just need the right words. So you don't have to have a lot on your website because, reality is people are not reading it. Like, they're just scrolling. So you need to just get a feel very quickly of what you're about. So, yeah.
I can 1000% relate to the struggle that architects feel on that end for sure, because when I jumped into marketing full time, one of the hardest things for me was the editing process. It's actually been thank God, I'm 3 years into writing this newsletter every single week now, and I've learned how to edit the process. But because so much of our value and worth, especially through school and then going up, is in how much information you can provide.
Yes.
Like upfront, right? There's an endless limit. Like, continue to justify everything that you're doing. Continue to provide the details of everything that you're doing. And academically, that's fine. Although it kind of sets us up for failure on this part, right? Because it's like, it makes it really hard for us to understand what things actually matter.
Yeah.
Because it's all about volume and on the academic side. But when it comes to, running an actual practice in reality, it needs to be refined, and it comes down to clarity, and it comes down to being concise and being able to, share those ideas quickly and easily.
That's it. Yeah, 100%. It's hard. I find it hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. On the trust side, what are some of the, it's a recurring thing, right? Like, okay, so how do I, should I use testimonials? Should I use logos? What should the trust say? Like, what have you seen being the most powerful kind of trust factors that people can use on a website?
Yeah, look, again, it depends on your type of firm. I think one really good thing for commercial firms or bigger firms is numbers, like social math. You've got the numbers up there that are like, we've worked on this many projects across this many countries. And I always tell them to add in a bit of fun and, drank this many cups of coffee. But it's like, numbers are good, right? They're tangible, as long as you put them into some sort of a context that they're not just kind of, you can anchor them in. I find numbers, as I said, testimonials. Look, I know you've probably heard this 100 times before, but they are very powerful, done in the right way. I always say to my clients, write the copy, then try and almost like kind of retrospectively fit testimonials to act as evidence to that copy. So, for example, you're writing about, the firm's really good at listening, or we love to collaborate. Then you want to have straight below it a testimonial that acts as evidence and says, oh, they were so good. They listened to our ideas. They didn't railroad our vision, whatever it is. So it's just kind of one idea per testimonial. I've seen a lot of architects just write these or just copy paste some random huge
long explanation. Yeah,
there is an art. I've written a whole masterclass about it. There is an art to writing and editing and getting the right testimonials. You need to be asking your clients the right questions, not waiting till the end of a project. Asking it throughout at specific milestones, all of that. But yeah, I think testimonials, case studies are really good for for warmer clients that are kind of on the fence about reaching out to you. Maybe they just want a bit more information before they reach out. But yeah, I think, look, again, like voice plays a huge role. You can get people to trust you just with your voice and firm's voice alone, I think.
You know what I like about what you just said was that, well, actually, you didn't say it explicitly, but I heard it implicitly, which is that the story that you're telling should still continue through that page. Because we so often think about the different sections of the website, because you were talking about like testimonials, right? I think immediately when someone thinks that, they're like, okay, I need to add a testimonial section of the website. And that's fine, but like you were saying, hey, I just spoke about something relevant, right? I just spoke about something that we deliver. Let me find a testimonial that's immediately relevant to that thing and place it right below that, right? Not a testimonial section. It's just now, instead of it being a testimonial section, it's a section about, whatever, delivering on the value or increasing the end value of the property or something like that. And here's a follow-up to that. So it's everything is kind of a continuation. The priority is in the story. Yes. Rather than in the structure.
Yeah, and look, I'll tell you as a tangible example, Bauer Architecture, they're a firm in Australia. They do a really good job of that. You'll see on their website, they've just woven in these testimonials just really beautifully. and they just, anchor and act as evidence. So that's a good example to check out if you want to kind of see it in action.
I mean, it wouldn't be Nikita on a podcast if she didn't do a shout out to an Australian firm.
Oh,
right? We got to bring more light to that, right?
That was not intentional.
Yeah. You're reminding me of you actually have a giant like lead magnet or something, right? Of like, you've reviewed hundreds of websites and given examples to the things that are working and not working in them.
So last year when I, side story, but when I had my fourth baby, the nights I was up all night, I pretty much spent that time collating every single good architecture website I've ever seen, and I put them into one library, and it's all categorized, it's annotated, the screenshots, so if you can get that for free on my website, but it's a good resource.
That's amazing. Yeah. And also, if you're listening here, Nikita's looking for an assistant so that she doesn't have to do that next time.
Exactly.
That's insane. I get it, though. There's not very much sleep happening right now. Okay, well, so let's talk about how architects can actually track, whether their website is working for them. What are the KPIs and metrics that they should be looking at to understand the performance of their website, or maybe to even kind of dissect and begin to analyze what things are working, what things aren't working, and where they should be focusing their attention?
Yeah, look, I mean, like, just broadly speaking, I think for my clients personally, a lot of them just say that they've started to get inquiries from more of the right fit clients, which I think is a huge one. Look, I'm assuming that, a lot of people listening to this don't need hundreds and thousands of inquiries. You just need a handful of really good projects. So I think that's a big one, is you just notice that, oh, hang on, like, we're getting some really good inquiries now that fit with who we are and what we want to be doing. I guess another one, again, very broadly speaking, I know these aren't like kind of analytical like numbers, but another thing that is just feedback. Like, a lot of my clients say, oh, Nikita, it's been 6 months since we launched and people are saying how much they love our website. So I think, you do, and people do give feedback, like you ask them, how did you come across us? Or we saw your website. Or, we really liked your website. So I think you just start to hear a lot more talk essentially about your website. Whereas before, maybe it wasn't really mentioned, or it was just seen as a tool, like becomes, the front of your brand. And, Tyler, you're always sharing so many good tactics. I think the step before, doing those tactics is getting your messaging right, so that when you drive people to that website, there's like a cohesive kind of message that's been communicated. But yeah, like, I mean, in terms of analytics, it's always good just to keep and track, what pages people are clicking on. Maybe you find that there's like one page that people are really into and spend a long time on there. So analytics, obviously, it's always kind of good to have an overview, but yeah, I think just seeing the types of inquiries and maybe even the number.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix of kind of quantitative and qualitative data, right, that you're gathering. Yeah, I come from the more of a conversion rate optimization side, right?
We've had this discussion before.
We have a little bit. Yeah, so you can definitely it's really easy to set up Google Analytics for your site, right? I mean, it takes it's not, I wouldn't say it's super user friendly, but after it's set up, it's easy to go and then look at the data, right? And so to Nikita's point, like, you can set up Google Analytics for free extremely easily. You can see how much monthly traffic you're getting. You can see where those people are coming from. Like, are they coming from Google? Are they coming from your Instagram page? Are they coming from LinkedIn? And so you can get a better sense of where traffic is coming from. And then once the traffic is there, you can look at things like bounce rate to see how long they're staying, or look to see which pages they're actually going to, and figure those things out. And what I would do if we were chasing this all the way down, right, I'd figure out the page where they tend to spend the most time, and I would start adding in more opportunities on that page for them to take the next step with you, right? Because there's something on that page that's kind of resonating. And if you tend to be getting like a decent amount of traffic, but you're not getting as many inquiries, right, then the issue is usually in, there's honestly probably not enough calls to action on your website. You're not giving people enough opportunities to take that next step, or you're just not making it obvious enough that that's the next step that you want them to take, right? So having one button on your website that says, reach out to us or talk about your project is not enough. Like, you should have that button like almost in every section, at a minimum in every other section, it should be obvious that that's the next step that you want someone to take. And that alone, I think, would probably, you'll increase the amount of inquiries you get just simply from adding the button more often.
100%. And just on that note, like the amount of architect websites I see that say, ready to start your project now, like with a question mark, like do not ask these rhetorical questions. If there is a possibility the answer can be no, do not.
Yeah, don't ask a question. Yeah.
It's like really bad. Like, ready to start now? And you're like, no, I'm not ready to start now. I'm just doing my research. And so they don't click. Like, it sounds so obvious. But yeah, I always say with those call to action buttons, add a sentence above that kind of meets the ideal client where they're at in their head. So, for example, whether you're bouncing around ideas or know exactly what you want or somewhere in between, get in touch. And then you have the button. So it's just giving them options of like, yep, like putting themselves in a box and being like, okay, well, yeah, I'm that, so I can click that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, a little bit of a lead into that, call to action. Yeah. Have you been thinking about your, dream home, but just aren't quite sure how to pull it together? Talk to an architect.
Exactly. And to
take the next step.
To be able to nail those bits of copy is the kind of, we haven't even touched on that today, but is you have to know your ideal client. Like, who is that client that you want to walk through the door? And you have to know where they're at, because otherwise that won't land.
Yeah. We've covered so much. I'm curious what you think. This is why I was really excited to bring you on. We've done a workshop together too, so this is a little bit like we're repeating. Yeah. We find ourselves repeating these things that we've done before. But what would you say is the kind of easiest lever that an architect listening to this can pull today if they want to improve their website in a way that's actually going to kind of drive more inquiries and help them, get a little bit more performance out of their website?
Yeah, that's a big question. I would just say, like what we were talking about before, just hop onto your website, look at that above the fold section and just nail that, because people aren't going to scroll, like they have to see that. So yeah, just kind of go off what we were talking about, the who, what, where, the value you add, and just focus on that section. Make sure architecture is somewhere there. And then, at least then you can keep them scrolling.
Yes, 1000%. And just to double down on that, the above the fold section, that's the section of your website that exists before anyone starts scrolling, right? So it's going to be whenever someone types in abcarchitects.com, they go to your website. Before they scroll, that is your above the fold section. And so often it includes like no information whatsoever, right? And you actually want to pack as much concise information in that area as possible. Make sure that within that above the fold, you are speaking clearly to your ideal client. You're telling them what you do, and you're telling them why you're different from the other people that do the same thing. And if you do those three things, that above the fold section is going to see an immediate improvement. Yes, fully. Yes. Thanks so much, Nikita.
Yes.
Thank God, like people can hear it from someone other than me. I think, right, and someone that has way more experience than I do. So yeah, so thanks for bringing that. Thanks for bringing that home. Well, where can people go to learn more about you, Nikita?
Yeah, so definitely jump onto my newsletter. It's very different to most. A lot of kind of personal stories, but it's a good way to see how you can kind of tell stories and also deliver a message to your clients. Check out that Architects website library. And also kind of big news is I have a program that is going to be launched. You've heard it here first. I've literally not told anyone outside this podcast, but it's called Site Smart Sprint, and I'm going to be helping architects get their website done in 3 days, which is epic. I've re-engineered everything. It'll be positioning, messaging, and all your website copy done in just 3 days, because I just know how busy architects are. So I've spent the last kind of few months trying to figure out how to crack this, and I feel like I've done it. So that's going to be launched in September.
Okay, that is really awesome, and I can't believe it. We get to be the first to know, and people can learn about this at nikitamorel.com. Is that where they go?
Join my newsletter, and then you'll be the first to hear. Yep.
Perfect. Yes, and you 1000% undersold your newsletter, by the way, because you said it's a lot of personal stories, which it is, but they are masterfully. There's masterfully woven in like lessons and wisdom into these into these stories in a way that I like just haven't ever seen anyone else do. So yeah, 1000% you should join Nikita's newsletter. Go check her out. Hire her, use her to do your website. I've only ever heard great things, but thank you so much for joining us, Nikita.
Thank you, Tyler. I really, really appreciate being here. Always lovely to chat.
All right, GROWTHITECT, that is a wrap on this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the podcast, then please take 30 seconds to share a review and tell me your favorite part so that I can keep making it better for you. And hey, if you want to work with me directly to increase your fees and start winning the biggest projects of your career, then send me an email at hello@growthitect.com with the word grow. That is it. Just email me the word grow at hello@growthitect.com and I will get you sorted out. All right, I'll see you next time, friends.